everyone, I am finally back with another Let's Cosplay video. It has been quite a while since I filmed one of these, but we are finally making another one, and this time it's about cosplay summary books. So I'm not 100% sure if summary book is the right name for this. That's just what I've been calling it. I feel like it encompasses what the book actually is fairly decently. It is just a name, so if you'd want to call it a cosplay breakdown book or just a cosplay detail book or journal or whatever you'd like, it's completely up to you. So one thing I want to try to do in this video is not say the phrase completely up to you a million times. So I'm going to get that out of the way now. This book in its entirety, the way it's built, the way it's put together, the way it's designed, structured, all of that is your choice. Treat it like a full DIY because there is no right or wrong way to make one of these. I do also want to say I am by no means an expert. This is the only one I've ever made. In all of my years of cosplay, I know of them, I'd heard of them, I have seen others that other people have made. I just never had the opportunity or need to make one for myself as I don't really compete that much. But I thought it would be fun to kind of go through it with you guys and just give you maybe a little guideline of how I did mine, just to maybe inspire you on any that you might make in the future. Or maybe you never thought to make one, but after watching this video you think it could be helpful. So in the end, that's all I'm trying to do, is offer stuff to you guys that might be just a little helpful. So in its bare bones, there are two reasons to make one of these. The first one being that you're going to be entering a competition at a convention and you're going to want this to hand to the judges. If you've ever entered a contest before, you'll know that it is different for every convention you go to. Every judge is different. There's no real way to know what you're walking into. Having something like this, which is a solid breakdown of all the fun little details of your costume, ensures that the things that you put your hard work into and all that extra time and all that extra effort are actually seen. Most conventions nowadays are very, very well put together in terms of their contest, but it never hurts to be safe versus sorry. Most conventions will offer pre-judging, or at least give the judges a certain amount of time to go up to each contestant and look at their costumes and get a kind of feel for all of the work put into them, all of the details, the seams, all of that. But that's not always the case. So by having one of these books available, you can hand it to the judges and they can take it with them and return it to you later, or look over it while you discuss different aspects of your costume. This allows them to see photos and little tiny snippets of information, swatches, whatever you put in here, it kind of points it out a little bit more to that judge. So for example, let's say that you spent 4 hours doing some really even machine-like quality, super fancy top stitching on this certain piece of your costume that if you just look at it from a glance, you're like, yeah, that's nice. But they don't really see or know exactly what that, oh yeah, that's nice, consists of. So by having pictures and a breakdown of that part and what all you had to do to get it to that, it looks nice, that will kind of amplify that piece to those judges, so that way they know a little bit more about your costume that you may not be able to give them in a quick rundown. A second reason to make one of these is it is just a really cool recount of your hard work and your costume all in one convenient place. I do have other videos that go over breakdowns of costume pieces, swatches, things like that. This is a much more detailed and kind of in-depth overview of the whole costume. So even if you don't have the costume in 5 years or whatever, you can always go back to this book, look at your pictures, look at your swatches and things like that, and just be like, I did that. So now that I've kind of talked a little bit about the usefulness of a book like this, you guys are probably wondering what, you've been waving it around like a lot, what is inside. So I'm going to show you guys how I went about making mine and just some things that I kept in mind while I was making mine, and hopefully it helps you guys if you're ever wanting to make one of your own. I am also going to throw out there, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the parts of my cosplay that are outlined in this book, simply because I plan to make a separate video that is like my Riku and Prompto and all that, that are the trials and mistakes and everything of the fantasy Oikawa. You guys know I like sharing all of the horrible things that I ran into and mistakes that I made with all of you, so that way you won't make them yourselves. So that video will be coming later on, but for now, let's just go through this book. So as you can see, we have our title page here, and it's very, very simple. I have everything in this nice little binder that I got from Office Depot. It was like $1, honestly. You can use any kind of folder. I just liked the way this one looked. I did also get all the pages and pictures and stuff printed at Office Depot. I think total it was maybe $6 or $7 for the pictures and for this. That's just because I don't have a good printer. If you have a good printer, feel free to print your own. I think you can print things like at libraries and all kinds of places. I just happened to choose Office Depot. I did also design all of my pages in Photoshop. That was just easier for me. You can use InDesign, a Word document, OpenOffice, which is a free software. Honestly, there's a million different programs and things like that you can use to make one of these. If you don't have access to a computer, you can get your pictures printed out, cut them out, and treat it like a scrapbooking project and just paste them down, decorative paper, however you want to do it, and, you know, handwrite all of your details if you choose to do it that way. So back to the title page and talking about the book. I know I ramble a lot, sorry. So the title page is very simple. There's this blue watercolor background. I didn't want anything too loud, but I also didn't want a plain sheet of white paper, just my personal preference. So very simply, like a title page of an essay, I put Fantasy Oikawa Toru and created by Hatter Insanity. This tells them what the costume is, who the character is, and who it's made by. So if they wanted the judges to keep this book and return it to me later, they knew who to give it back to, and they knew which costume went to which creator, which is all information you give them when you sign up for the contest. So yeah, just kind of separates your book, and it's just a title page, nothing too fancy. So when you first open up the book, we have our index. Now I wanted to make this very clear, very clean, and very like put together. I will be putting a close-up shot just so you guys can see things a little bit better. On the left, we have a large image of my reference art that I was using so they can compare the art to the finished product. The upper right, I did put the credits to the artist. We did get permission from the artist on Tumblr to create this design, so I have that as well. And then there is just the actual index, which breaks down all the pages inside. Those also correspond with the numbers from the pictures. This was not a necessary step, but I kind of liked the way it broke everything down so they weren't wondering by like, oh, undershirt or white cape, blue cape, which one are they talking about? You know, it's like number 2, that's the long extending white back cape. White back cape is page number 4. So just an index, very simple, but useful. From there, we have all of our breakdown pages. So after we move on from our index, we start working on the pieces. I documented everything from the muslin mock-ups to dyeing the fabric to the general construction. And up here, there is just a really small little snippet of information, a quick summary of all of what they're seeing in the photos, basically. The next page is still on the jacket, but this time we're onto the sleeves. I included photos of the designing of the gold trim and then the different layering processes, and then a good close-up that showed my top stitching work. Next we had the beast, which was the back of the jacket, and this was a bit of a pain. Again, you'll see that all of my pages are structured exactly the same, but there's a small little text snippet at the top and then detailed photos varying usually about 3 to 4 or so. You don't want to put a whole cluster of pictures. You don't want it to be too distracting. You want to just get to the point of what you're trying to showcase and make it very obvious, hey, here's what I accomplished. Moving on to the next page. We're still on the jacket. This is now getting into the white back cape. They can see how big of a piece it is and all of the different detailing work here. The next page moves on to a different piece. Normally I wouldn't say to do a bunch of pages for one piece, but as the jacket had a lot of individual sections of detailing, I wanted to make sure that those were highlighted because that's what took me a really long time, all that top stitching and heat transfer vinyl and gold vinyl and all that. So I really wanted to make sure that the judges knew if they were just getting to glance at my costume that, hey, she did a lot of work on this. For the blue cape, I decided to do a little bit different versus showing the construction steps. I kind of talked about it a little up here, but more or less I showed how everything attached in because I had to get creative with how it was structured to get the desired look. So I wanted to make sure that they knew how it attached to the jacket, how it attached to the pauldron, and all of that nifty stuff. The sash itself has its own page. I actually have a work log video. I think it's a work log, or just a crafting video, it doesn't matter, of me making the sash. Now I didn't put a lot of work in progress pictures on this because it was essentially layering 2 fabrics and then just top stitching some gold and adding ribbon and beads. So I just included 3 nice detail photos that show all the little like points that I wanted to make sure they were aware of on it, like the top stitching of the gold, all the details of the beads and stuff like that. This was more of a focal piece of my costume, so it was easier for them to see these things, so I didn't have to do too much breakdown work on this. The same goes for the undershirt. They were able to see pretty right up in your face, especially with how tall I am, I'm right up in your face. So I just included some photos that showed different details of like the bottom where I did all of the embellishments and all of the ribbon, and I did want them to kind of see the difference that I was playing with textures, I was playing with colors, because the shirt itself uses the same fabric but both sides. One side is more gold metallic, one side is more black metallic. So I wanted to make sure in my text and in my pictures that they were aware that I was being very conscious about what types of materials and things like that. The second to last page in my book is the accessories to the costume. I didn't really make any of these from scratch per se, so that's why there's no like description up here of how I did what I did, but there are pictures that show I got these little blue gem brooches and attached them to ring bases to make my rings. I got this crown base, I attached one of the matching brooches to the front of it to kind of tie the look together, and then these 2 pieces used here on the shirt and then this one was on the blue cape were found vintage items from Etsy. So I just wanted to make sure that they could see that I did put a lot of thought into all of the little extras as well. My final page in the book is my swatches. So I always like to include swatches in all of my breakdowns. You know, I have the one that has all of the really detailed swatch information, but for the judges, I just really felt like all they would care about was what type of fabric it was, and just being able to see the fabrics or touch the fabrics. That way, if they didn't get a chance with me and my costume, they'd get a chance with this. So I just kind of made a little page here very similar to my other breakdown and included little squares of each one. This is the one where I used the same fabric but both sides, so I did smaller squares, one of each side, in case they were just looking at it. So yeah, pretty straightforward. So you may have noticed that my book is only about 10 pages. Originally when I wrote it down, I had a lot more pieces of my costume broken down. I had a lot more pictures, a lot more details, and it was about like 20 pages, and all of my friends were like, bro, nobody's gonna want to read that much. It's too big, make it smaller. So I cut it down to the bare bones of my costume, what I felt was the most important, what I wanted to showcase the most, and overall I'm really happy with it. So at the end of the day, making one of these for judges or for yourself is completely up to you. I definitely don't think it hurts to take this with you and hand it over for them to look at while you're being judged. I can't speak for how every convention or every contest is structured, so you never know when something like this might be useful. If you do make one of your own and share it on social media or something like that, please feel free to tag me or send it to me. I would love to see what you come up with. Also, make sure you guys put your own spin on things, your own colors, your own pictures, your own style. There's so much creativity to you that you can share with a project like this. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly like the one that I've shown. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful or helpful a little bit. Hopefully explained everything as best I could. If you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to just leave a comment or reach out. I always try to get back with everyone as best I can. But yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!